So you know what?
Sorry, needed to start that.
That's all right. I think we'll just go ahead and get started. And first of all, we want to welcome everybody this morning for taking time out of your busy day and showing up to see our lovely faces, whether you're sitting in Starbucks or somewhere out in the desert or elsewhere. And thank you all for coming. Hope you're all doing well on your campus. Everybody's back to work now. I know some of us are still kind of doing a hybrid or whatever. I'm sitting in the Starbucks in Glendora, as you can see by my screenshot there. But thank you all for coming. We're happy to have you here, and we got a full program for you. One of the things that's happened is there's been a number of questions regarding the new code issues that are going to be coming up from the Division of the State Architect and all kinds of stuff, all related to sustainability. So what we've done is we've reached out to Matt Sullivan, who is a consultant, as you know. He used to work with one of the engineering firms that serve the CCC-IOU. Anyway, he has teamed up with some folks from GLUMAC, and they have a wonderful presentation for us this morning. So we're going to turn it over to them. I know they could probably go a lot longer than the time allotted, so I want to make sure that I give them every minute that they can possibly get. So folks, it's all yours. Take it away. We can't wait to see what you have.
Yeah, thanks, Fred. We'll get the presentation pulled up a sec, but we're really excited to be here. We've been working in the space of sustainability for a really long time. We like to think that sustainability is really a symptom of good and responsible design. As long as you know where to make your first step, it should be a part of the process all the way through, and we shouldn't be trying to shove sustainability into a project or in construction documents. It should be something that we can achieve through, no cost or low cost items, at least to drive the building performance down to about 70% or 80% from an energy usage standpoint. So we have a little bit of a slide deck here to share with you all. The goal of this presentation is really to share with you what we've been doing with the California State University Chancellor's Office. We're also working with other window. Don't you love it when that happens? But we've also been working with the University of California. We have met with the Division of State Architect, more of a colloquial capacity, just providing some advisement. What was great about the work with the California State University system, and Gordon's going to get into this, is they made it a free and public resource, the decarbonization framework. Nicole, do you mind sharing your other window? We're seeing the presenter window.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. There we go. All right. So like I said, a little bit of a slide deck here. We are going to finish a little bit early so that people can ask questions. So we'll go to the next slide. We have an agenda we're following. We'll, of course, start with introductions. We'll talk about the GLUMAC and Sullivan collaboration, like Fred alluded to earlier. We will cover the climate action and sustainability framework that's kind of coming out of the Board of Governors. Our approach to these types of projects, and it's an approach that you can take as a screenshot and perhaps have discussions using that as perhaps a framework to try and implement these types of projects on campus. And then we'll do a quick case study of the CSU decarb roadmap, because really that's applicable to all 23 universities, so it had to be highly diverse. And it acted more as a structure as opposed to solutions for every single campus, so that it could fit with, hey, what's your existing infrastructure like, what's your existing central plants, et cetera. And then, like I said, we'll open it up for discussion. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to introduce Matt in just a second, but I'll start with myself. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. My name's Cameron Beeks. I work at GLUMAC, and I run our education practice for the company. I've been with GLUMAC for going on 11 years, and really excited to be here. I'm going to go from right to left, so I'm going to pass over to Gordon.
Thanks, Cameron. Great to be here. My name's Gordon Shure. I'm an energy engineer with GLUMAC based in our Los Angeles office. I've worked kind of extensively in higher education over the past 5-6 years, and was a part of the team that helped put together the CSU decarbonization framework. So excited to be here today. I'm going to and go into that project in a little bit. For now, I'll hand it back over to Nicole.
Hi, Nicole IO with GLUMAC. I've been with the company for 10 years and in the sustainability field for about 17 years now, and know a lot about green buildings, sustainable design, the various certification programs, the STARS system, and sustainability reporting, consulting with groups on implementing climate action plans, and just really excited to share what we've learned and the work that we've done and learn from you as to where you are in your journey and what we can do to help.
Yeah, and like Fred mentioned earlier, or I mentioned earlier, excuse me, Matt's not able to join us today because he's actually implementing this right now, the subject matter that's in this presentation with Foothill de Hanza. So he's not able to be here today. There's a lot of other faces that are on the screen there just to kind of demonstrate the other types of roles that would be required for projects like this. Data analytics through you, Zhang. There's a bunch of carbon specialists that are in the bottom left corner with Ante and Drew. And then of course the electrical side with Travis and mechanical side again with David. Next slide.
All in all, GLUMAC has in sustainability and energy 25 professionals working on a variety of sustainability related projects. So we've got a deep bench to draw from.
Yeah, 325. I don't know if my speakers were the only ones that cut out, but 325. Yep. And a lot of experience on the electrification energy audit front, several million square feet, several LEED living building challenge, etc. I'm not going to belabor this all that much. We can go to the next slide. I did want to talk a little bit about Matt though. So we're more on the design, the consulting side of things. And then Matt's really an expert when it comes to policy and board of governance. He's really, really experienced working with the California community colleges for a really long time. That's really where his specialty is. And so the partnership between the two of us is he's really good at the stakeholder management, making sure there's alignment across the different verticals at the different community colleges as well as the districts, and making sure that the change could actually be implemented through the policy process. And like I mentioned earlier, he is not here today because he's working with Foothill de Hanza, but here's several of the projects that he has been involved with. Again, he's been involved with the CCC for decades now, and is really a rock star when it comes to getting alignment and driving policy. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Nicole, who's going to kind of go over the Board of Governors recent sustainability framework.
Thanks, Cameron. So for the folks on the call here, have you had a chance to review the Board of Governors policy that the update came out in 2021? I think prior to that, it was released in 2019. Are folks familiar with the policy?
Nicole, I think everybody is a little bit familiar with at least a piece of it, if not a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, quite a bit was rolled out in the policy, covers a broad range of sustainability related design and operational areas. And, it begins with the fact that there's a lot to be done, and the community college districts need to start, gauging where they are in that journey and what work needs to be done, with the goal of making it to the initial milestone of 2025 and having a climate action plan in place, considering the use of the ASHE STARS sustainability reporting framework that's been around for higher education for quite a long time now. Conduct a greenhouse gas emissions inventory, start to assess, the good work that's been done on campus and how that, culminates to the progress that's been made against an established baseline. So it really is a call to action to start to understand, how are you doing on campus? do you have really the people in place needed to get the work done, and how do they communicate across different groups and have decision-making benefit with leadership and direct access to the Chancellor's office. So making sure that there is the right stakeholders in place and that they've got the ability to get the job done. So that's what we wanted to chat with you about today is, where you are in that journey, and then examples of what we've done in the work with community college districts and universities across California. In terms of the planning that we've done and the approach that we've used, in partnering with Matt Sullivan, he's the author of the California Community College Sustainability Plan Guidebook. And it's a really great guidebook. Perhaps, a few of you or all of you are familiar with it and utilize it on your campus, but it really helps to just establish, the baseline that's needed to frame how to set a roadmap for your climate action plan and implementation of projects identified in it. So it starts with, a roadmap for establishing governance, for establishing, shared agreement to create goals, and then to facilitate the process to identify those goals. And then through those goals, identify projects, prioritize those projects, conduct, life cycle cost analysis, understand, what is the roadmap and how should these projects be prioritized, who needs to be involved. And there are worksheets included to identify those projects and really kind of frame them out with their costs and benefit so that each can be vetted and then identified on a roadmap for when the best time is to implement them. And then there's monitoring and regular report progress to the campus. So this is a guidebook that Matt has authored and has implemented on a number of campuses. And so we find this help really valuable in elevating, the work that we do at GLUMAC in, building certifications and engineering design and identifying strategies and really understand all the various projects needed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions on the campus, including fuel switching and reducing natural gas use. This is the roadmap that we've developed with Matt and how we facilitate the process with campuses. And I think everybody here is a different place on the journey. And so we engage with clients in any phase of this implementation plan. There might be a need for, initial education and advocacy around the Board of Governors policy around the use of the ASHI STARS program and what it is and how it can help the campus. Identifying, a sustainability team, who are the players and are they, sitting in the right place to be effective in their work. We might get involved in research and analysis and understanding what's been done on campus. How does that, contribute to the progress, identifying goals, engaging stakeholders to agree to goals and then to understand how they can be how they can be implemented through like a strategic roadmap of various projects. It could be, extending the LED light retrofits, like low-hanging fruit, to prioritizing capital improvement planning around higher efficient systems or electrified systems. It could be related to fleet vehicles, and maybe that's an area that hasn't been touched, but the timing is right to update, the fleet or part of the fleet or rethink how the fleet is used. So we get involved in, a number of areas here. We could be operating in the background where we're working just on the ASHI STARS reporting, all the way to really leading the implementation of projects. So we help select, prioritize those programs and execute action plans. So we might spend the rest of the time just on this slide and understand where you are in your journey. But we wanted to just lay it out here and provide just a general framework of the way that we think about climate action planning and implementation. So now I'm going to pass it over to Gordon. He's going to talk about some of the work that he's done.
Thanks, Nicole. So yeah, I'm going to go into some detail about the projects we completed with the CSU system. We worked with the CSU Chancellor's office throughout 2019 and 2020 to develop this decarbonization framework for all 23 campuses. We were engaged because CSU is committed to their goal is currently an 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from their 1990 levels by 2040. And a significant majority of their emissions come that period will be from natural gas consumption on their campuses, whether that's from boilers or cogen systems. As the California grid gets a lot cleaner, the use of electricity is going to become cleaner. So that will be a big help for everyone. However, with that combustion of natural gas, there needs to be a way to move away from that in order for them to hit their goals. So we got engaged in this decarbonization framework, and it was really broken into these three areas. The first is the resources. So we helped put together a policy review, looked at kind of the policies driving decarbonization within California, whether that's executive orders or Senate Bill 100, which is the commitment to carbon-free electricity by 2045, or CSU policies, understand what the different campuses are at and understand how the Chancellor's office would like to kind of envision the whole university system going. We also put together a technology review. That was something which is important because these decarbonized solutions are kind of some more complex mechanical systems. If GLUMAC and Sullivan, if we're at kind of like a 10 in our understanding of these systems, then we spoke to some energy managers who were kind of a bit unsure and said that they wouldn't feel comfortable potentially implementing or recommending systems to facilities teams without a better understanding themselves of how the systems actually operate. So part of that technology review outlined all the different systems, decarbonized systems for domestic hot water, for heating hot water production, and it gave some background information, efficiencies, and how these systems will operate. And then we provided some conceptual designs and conceptual recommendations. So each of the 23 campuses obviously have their own centralized or decentralized heating systems. And we needed to provide these conceptual recommendations in order to help each campus understand, okay, this is one or two potential ways that we can decarbonize, and we can start that kind of planning process and look to see if this is a viable option for us. One of the other areas was guidelines. So climate adaptive design criteria was a key one. When we're looking at decarbonized systems, there really needs to be a change in mindset, I would say, on how to size heating systems, maybe slightly differently than the typical natural gas systems, just due to kind of how a heat pump operates and the cost of those systems. We've also seen some pretty significant swings in heating design days and cooling design days within California, and I guess across the world really. And weather files that look back over timeframes between maybe like 1960s through 1990s, which is what Title 24 uses in compliance modeling, really aren't very representative of where we expect to be going in the future. So we actually kind of looked at that and helped put together some guidelines on how we think that these systems should be sized. And then that kind of feeds into the Title 24 modeling piece. There are some limitations with kind of this compliance software and compliance roadmaps in California. Title 24 currently does not necessarily incentivize electrification, which is changing with the new code cycles, but it does pose issues with the design of decarbonized buildings on the current code cycle, which is the 2019 code. So we were able to put together some guidelines which the campus could use when they're kind of putting together plans for new construction and the major renovations. And then also guidelines on campus planning and how to kind of approach that and how to account for the impact of energy consumption as the campuses all expand. And then the final area was the tools side. So putting together a life cycle cost analysis tool where they could actually, each campus could actually look at kind of the life cycle costs of the different decarbonized heating systems that we looked at. And then last but not least, the simultaneous heating and cooling analysis, which helps set up kind of an understanding for each campus of what their heat recovery potential is to let them understand that, okay, we might be sizing heat recovery chillers with this capacity. And I'll go into that. We have a slide in a couple that shows that. Can we go next slide, please, Nicole? So I think this is a great summary of the decarbonization framework as a whole. We started out with the assessment and planning stage. So looking at how the campuses are operating, taking a good understanding of existing condition, the expected useful life of all the natural gas equipment on campus, and ensuring there's a full inventory of it. There's probably several buildings there are several buildings on different campuses which may have domestic water, natural gas water heaters in buildings, and all of them kind of like contribute to the scope 1 emissions. So having a good understanding outside of maybe a central plant where all your combustion is going to be key. And then also campus vision, so the planning aspect. I want to kind of draw attention to that one because it's going to be key for each of the CSU campuses to ensure that they're kind of aligned all the way from president through to the facility staff and an understanding of this is where we're going and have confidence that that's the right decision. And that's definitely not an easy task to get kind of an entire campus all engaged and all kind of going in the same direction. So ensuring there's a clear understanding of where we want to go and how we're going to get that way is kind of one of those upfront steps that we will feel is extremely important. There's then kind of more onto the engineering side. So what can be done in the short term, in the near term, and how can we reduce loads in order to reduce current combustion? We're not going to be able to just transition to decarbonized systems overnight, right? That's going to be in the long term. In the near term, we're going to look at kind of what can we do with existing hot water temperatures? What can we do with scheduling in order to reduce loads? And because the best way to reduce natural gas consumption is to stop wasting heating loads. So building controls comes into that as well. Are we cooling supply air, then reheating it at a VAV box? Is there a way to optimize that? And then I think, let's draw attention to the hot water temperature reset, because that's going to be a key one. And I'm sure that's something which is a concern for a lot of facilities and a lot of people in a lot of different campuses across the state, is sizing systems that were sized for 180 degrees. They're not going to be able to operate at that point when they are looking at heat recovery and heat pump solutions. So what can we reset our hot water to and still meet all the thermal comfort needs? Moving into the optimization, that'll be really kind of allowing each campus to understand what their maximum heat recovery potential is, whether that's going to be through installation of thermal energy storage or central plant optimization. And this is just a couple of examples of where there are opportunities. And through these kind of operations and optimization efforts, the goal is to understand, okay, what is our heat recovery potential fully on campus, so that when we go into the long-term full electrification, systems have been sized for true loads and for the optimal heat recovery potential. Because as I kind of noted earlier, you don't want to be sizing decarbonized systems for maybe loads that are actually due to wasted heat, and whether that's because of leaking hot water pipes, or whether that's because, like I said, VAV boxes are reheating when in fact you could actually have like a higher supplier temperature at an air handler. Ensuring that the systems are operating optimally and that before you go into that full electrification step is going to be key. And the continuous improvement down along the bottom, that's going to be something which we envision being required throughout from today through into the long term and kind of after a full electrification has happened. It's not going to be kind of a do it now and leave it. It's going to be continuous, and building retrofits, control upgrades as funds allow are going to be kind of important in the whole decarbonization framework. Next slide, please, Nicole. So here's an example kind of I alluded to earlier of this simultaneous heating and cooling tool. We were able to access the heating and cooling load profiles for the different campuses, all 23 of them, and where there was missing data, we were able to kind of put together some regression analysis in order to kind of see what is our heat recovery potential on each of the campuses. So this plot is looking at that annual heating and cooling load profile. The darker red and the kind of darker blue is where your heating and cooling loads overlap enough to allow for heat recovery. So you can recover heat from the cooling loops and transfer that in to provide hot water to the campus. And this, yeah, you can kind of see as we change, we can kind of drill down into individual hours of the year, as well as look at it from a holistic view to see, is there specific times? And then the lighter red and the lighter blue is going to be your peak times when you might be relying on other systems. So whether that's an electric boiler, and we're really trying to optimize the system to, if you look at the bottom right, where's the heat recovery potential, that total percentage, our goal would be 100%. Obviously, that's going to be tough. So that optimization step looks at, okay, false cooling, what could we do? Or the false cooling and plus thermal energy storage, where does that get us to allow each campus to kind of understand, you know, what the maximum potential is with the current loads. And it is worth noting that this doesn't necessarily account for optimizing due to wasted heat. So there could be periods of the year where there's wasted heat, and we need to account for that when we're looking at the annual profiles. It's not just taking always the data as it comes, making sure we're doing some kind of actual kind of analysis on it. And then the last thing I want to draw attention to is the hot water temperature kind of inputs. So as I said earlier, a lot of these systems would be designed for 180 degrees. That is not going to be possible really with current technologies to provide 180 degrees with heat recovery systems. We know we're going to have to be providing lower temperatures, and this simultaneous heating and cooling tool allows the campus to alter what their minimum hot water temperature is based on any sort of reset analysis they've done to see how that impacts that heat recovery potential on the campus. And what was nice about this tool is a web-based tool, so able to send that link to each of the campuses and allow their energy managers and allow their sustainability people to get in and actually kind of use this tool to start the conversation on campus. At least we know that this is the first step. The decarbonization framework provides that, hopefully a roadmap, and it doesn't provide detailed design in it, but it allows them to kind of start that thought process and start the campus vision and start aligning different stakeholders on campus. And I believe that kind of brings an end to the direct decarbonization presentation. Definitely here to answer some questions and kind of put this into a discussion and start that kind of conversation.
Well, guys, thank you very much for doing that. You know, and I had a bunch of, when Gordon's talking about those VAVs with the supplier temperature, I had a bunch of different thoughts going through my mind. First of all, for Nicole, I think all of the community colleges have really have come a long way, and Matt was a big help to all of us, especially during Prop 39 and the development of the sustainability template. I'm going to take a guess. Ron, would you say that probably at least 90% of the campuses have a sustainability plan?
I had to find a way to unmute this. I don't know that they got that many or not, Fred. I think the comprehensive sustainability plan that was developed by Citrus, I still think that there's still a lot to be done in community colleges across the board. But I know that everybody has been working on a sustainability plan. They're working on it, but they're not got it together yet.
We've come a long way.
We totally have come a long way. I think I've looked at it a lot of different, and there's a lot more attention given to it due to the fact that the governor's office has, of course, an executive order. And I think everybody in these state agencies are doing their best to try to comply with that.
So probably maybe a better number would be like maybe 50%. That's
Yes,
probably
I
more
think
correct.
maybe to have a more of a comprehensive plan. There are just so many out there that still need a lot of help and assistance with it, because not all districts have a lot of staff to try to implement these or the funds in place to make it happen. But I don't know, I'd like to hear everybody else's opinion on that, but that'd be great. Oh, there's Ruben wants to talk.
I always want to talk. No, I'm just kidding.
How you doing, Ruben?
I'm great. How are you, Brent? Good seeing
Good.
you all. You know, I like the discussion around sustainability plans at the colleges, right? And one of what I've recognized is, although not every college may have a sustainability plan, they probably have an integrated energy plan, integrated energy resource plan, something along the lines of a resolution. Because one of the challenges that I see is when you say master plan, it immediately jumps to collaborative shared governance, right? And then it's like, do I really want to go through this because I don't have the staffing? If we have the commitments, I'm going to be held to a standard. So I think that, you know, there is a plan, but it not necessarily is the sustainability master plan.
So we're on our second one at Citrus. And then in my thoughts with listening to Cameron and Nicole and Gordon, my next big thing went to how many of the campuses that you guys have worked on have a fully developed climate action plan?
Yeah, well, that's a lot less, but I do see a lot of districts working on that. They are doing to come in, and I think they're all looking for all the type of resources that they can get to do that. And hopefully through these workshops, we can show that there are a lot of resources out there to help districts get either started on it or start complying with some of the information. We even have people here from the California Energy Commission today that's going to be talking a little bit later. And I think they've got some assistance in that particular area as well.
Ron, how many of ours do you think actually have a climate action plan?
How many of ours?
Yeah.
Well, right now I'm seeing more and more. I know that there's a lot of them working. I could think of maybe a dozen of them that's working on it right now. I know Hussein's working on his. I know San Bernardino's already got one in place. I know LA's been working on it significantly. I know that Long Beach, I see John's on here as well. He can talk a little bit about his too, but they're working on, I know they've already done an integrated master plan, and I think they're working in that direction as well. So yeah, I can name a bunch of them right now that are working on it. And I think if we say it's complete, I don't think they're ever going to be complete, because
No.
they're coming up with new stuff. They're all the time wanting to expand it and grow it, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm saying that it's something that is constant and growing and changing.
It's got to be a working document. I mean, that's the biggest thing that we have to remember, because we continue to have to pivot based on the change in goals, right? So, you know, in the past it was energy efficiency, and then it was load growth, and then it's you know, climate change and carbon footprint, and you know, how do you look at your emissions, and do you focus on every scope, or do you focus on just, you know, a couple of scopes? So I feel like, you know, we have to make sure that we continue to update and make that document as flexible and fluid as possible, and not get too stagnant. Because I would say, Fred, you know, 70% of the districts have at least either started or completed, you know, kind of a phase one. And to your point, you guys are on, you know, a whole new document to begin with. I would say that's kind of where they are in what we've seen in the field on what's coming from the districts themselves.
Which is awesome. So that kind of goes back to, Nicole, the question that you had presented earlier. That kind of tells you where all the community colleges are at. They're really all over the place. And not only is that document a living document, but it's also a moving target, as Lisa specified there. So Gordon, one of the questions I had for you was in regard to the VAVs. Most campuses have them all over the place. And one of the issues that we have, central plant 4-pipe system and the wasting of heat, because you're reheating. One of the big things that happens on a typical campus are the, I'll say, different levels of applicability to temperature inside of a building. You know what I'm talking about. So the complaints start coming in, and that's why we have things set up in a certain way. What do you tell your client when they start telling you about those issues, when you're telling them the physics behind it and how they can solve their problem?
Yeah, that's a great question and an extremely tough one to try and kind of handle. So I think the biggest thing that we've seen is trying to educate building occupants that as we move towards these decarbonized systems and as we move towards buildings that are trying to be more energy efficient, there has to be an adjustment of what they've previously considered as the comfort. So having electric spot heaters under the desk is not going to work for a zero net energy building, for example. And I think part of that is user interaction. So can we put together dashboards to let the occupants know what the temperatures are within each space and allow them to kind of interact with the building so they can see how much built energy the building is using compared to last month and what we can do to kind of continue that. In terms of, I guess, like the actual issue of people saying we're cold, we need it to heat up. Yeah, that's a tough one. And I think that it'll come back down to like mechanical design of systems, and you can't just, if there is issues with capacities in certain areas, we can't just be providing 130 degree water to a coil, a 1-row VAV that was sized for 180 degree. Maybe we do have to start retrofitting to 2-row coils and VAV boxes to kind of ensure that comfort is maintained. But yeah, that's a tough one. I think Cameron probably is a good resource as well.
Yeah, I'm actually teaching a course at New School of Architecture on this exact subject, and it's called environment optimization. And we look at both passive and active strategies in order to achieve environment optimization. We for air quality, lighting levels, acoustics, so on and so forth. And we're doing it in such a way that you can find a nexus as opposed to a juxtaposition. Energy and air quality or thermal comfort don't need to be juxtaposed. There is a nexus where they can actually come together. Oftentimes, Fred, the classrooms, right, we have some standard temperatures and ranges, but they're usually on their own zone. Where you get that lots of reheat and everything that's happening is kind of in those academic or the office spaces, right, where people are on the same thermostat. You got way too many offices tied to the same thermostat, and that's when people bring in those spot heaters. And so I'm going to throw a link into the chat here. It's a video where I'm talking with another mechanical engineer. Her name's Stacy, and it's on the subject of thermal comfort and design strategies that are actually set up to allow for not only the freedom of choice, but also different design strategies so you don't result in reheat. So you can actually do a gradient style open office format where on one side of the floor plan, you're providing 70 degree air. On the other side of the floor plan, you're 75, and you allow for hoteling stations. And I know that that's a change in culture for a lot of institutions because we're so used and comfortable to having our own private offices. So it's figuring out what the design strategies are that are out there so we can get the BOD right. We can do the design correctly so we don't result in excessive reheat. If we're keeping a space at 75, it can stay at 75 just in cooling minimum without needing to reheat. But if we have 6 offices tied to the same VAV and you got 3 people bringing in their own personal electric heaters, that's where you start seeing that added on energy in order to achieve thermal comfort. So I'll throw that in the chat too.
Well, that never happens.
Cameron, I can't tell you how happy I am to hear that you're teaching a class down at a school of architecture, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the education thing is huge. And on the campus side, one of the things that I think is going to eventually have to happen in the future is once everything shakes out, probably new board resolution for respective campuses regarding what the actual set points are, because I can see those moving in the future a little bit.
And it also, when you think about thermal comfort too, there's so much that goes into it: metabolic rate, exposed radiant temperature,
right.
the actual ambient air temperature, what clothes people are wearing. And so when you see a lot of, I'd say, more progressive companies that are out there who try and shoot for net zero, they have an adaptive dress code that if it's over 80 degrees outside, then people are allowed to wear different, formalities of clothes. If it's over 90, they can wear a short sleeve and they can wear shorts and flip-flops. If it's over 80, they have to still wear slacks, but they can get away with like a polo or a collared polo. So these adaptive dress codes, these adaptive cultures, the freedom of choice, we have ASHRAE 55 that we can always look to and we can design around, but I am so glad I'm a mechanical engineer and not a structural engineer, because I only need to make 80% of my occupants satisfied with what I do. Structural engineers need to be 100% right, and thank goodness they are. But that's the conundrum with ASHRAE 55 and Dr. Olfinger. I mean, he started doing this stuff back in the 50s. And, Dr. Choi at USC right now is doing some really cool research on dual sensing on skin to create, I guess, a bioresponse building automation. So if you start to perspirate too much or if your skin temperature rises too quickly, the building is able to respond to that. So there's a lot of really cool technology on the thermal side and on the lighting side. When you look at your actual pupils dilating and the rate of change there too, there's a lot of cool tech out there, and that's a whole nother conversation. The one thing that I'd like to propose, though, is that people spend a little bit of time in that framework, because the framework was set up in such a way that it was highly adaptable to all 23 different universities in the CSU system. It had to account for all the different climates. It had to account for all these different quote unquote KPIs. Lisa brought up a really good point that these KPIs, they're changing. Gordon, if you want to throw up the CSU LA thing real quick. We talk about energy audits, and as an engineer, I personally, it's a great service. We love to do it. We usually get paid a decent amount. That said, I hate when they just go on the shelf and become a paperweight. I want to see action. I want to drive change. Like, what are the decisions that the Board of Governance wants to agree upon in order to actually execute a project? And so we worked with, I think it was 7 or 8 of the CSUs to come up with a format similar to this. It shows your volumetric flow of money similar to a green revolving fund. So essentially, it shows your first cost, it shows your year one energy cost savings, it shows your simple payback. The bottom graph shows that, hey, if I do these projects, I'm going to accrue this amount of money over time and then perhaps reinvest that money. But the key one on here that was most beneficial for CSU LA in particular was the reduction effectiveness. And that looks at how much does it cost for every metric ton of carbon emissions reduced. And that was their KPI that they felt was the most important at that time. This is a really, it's Gordon's brainchild. So it's a really smart program in the background, but it's really an Excel-based platform that I'm sure all of us have access to. It's Excel-based, and then it's just a visualization software using Power BI. And so Power BI is a Microsoft product, and it's just a data visualization tool is all. But the importance here is on what are the KPIs that are most important to the stakeholders that you can achieve alignment, and how can you communicate to those that are in charge of the finances in order to drive change. That's the biggest takeaway. So taking this mindset, pairing that with the framework that we put together for the Chancellor's office, it can hopefully be a good starting point. And then the workflow that Nicole had shared earlier, those can all be used as starting points as you start having these conversations, or perhaps reflecting on what your current direction is in your own sustainability plans. I'm going to get off my soapbox, Fred. Sorry.
You keep on talking. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, and the coolest thing with that, and what community colleges should look at within that plan that you just had up there, is when you put it to a common metric, right? So if you get it per ton of CO2 and you're looking at that as the total benefit, you're now getting to a common metric. You're not just focused in silos of all the various metrics of energy. you get to a common metric and a common currency around carbon, and it's something everybody can get around.
Yep, Lisa, it's a great point. For LACCD, Enrique Castro as well as Barrett Patel, they push us a lot to throw a dollar value on carbon emissions, and Aris too. I just see Aris popped up in the window too. So getting feedback from LACCD on a lot of these life cycle cost analyses for new design projects has been great. So we can throw an actual dollar value on the metric tons of CO2 and project that out over time. And that's actually driven a lot of decisions for just recent projects at the district. I know that the Mission College project is going to have systems in there that'll allow for future electrification, if not fully electrified day one. And then also on the Trade Tech campus, the Design and Media Arts building, they elected to go with a fully electrified solution. So no natural gas there, both for the process steam loads as well as the domestic hot water and the heating hot water loads. Although it was more expensive, I think it was actually Aris's handiwork that pushed that one, advocated for it to make that happen. But he had those metrics that were common metrics around carbon emissions in order to make that actionable within the district.
Enrique does a good job over there.
Enrique I look to him as like a kind of a mentor in a lot of ways. He's just got so many years of experience, and Gordon and I met with him about a year ago just to get feedback on the dashboard we just shared. So we're trying to see what are challenges, Enrique, that you run into when you're trying to actually get these projects implemented. And we're trying to take that feedback, and like I said, it's just Power BI, it's just data visualization, but we're trying to make these decisions easier for the users.
Gordon, what can you tell us? And this is kind of a selfish question on my side. What have you guys done with food service? So let's say that, because we're going to have a project that's going to be coming up, and it's obviously going to be under the new code. We have a commercial kitchen, it's for our site, hasn't been modernized in 40, 50 years. That's going to be one of our number one projects coming up. So what have you seen on the food service side with electrification?
So I think we all know there's different technologies available to fully electrify food service. There can be domestic hot water can provide 140 degrees with electrified systems. Induction cooking is available. The one thing I guess I would say is that we need to target the main sources on campuses, the large sources, and that would be your central heating plants, large boilers providing heating to several buildings. It might not be economical in the short term to fully electrify every single food service, every single kitchen. I think we have to accept that things are not going to change overnight. And if you do putting in a new project that has a full commercial kitchen, there are ways to, so there will be maybe potential installation of new natural gas systems. However, I think there's also, moving away from the induction, there are electric options for a number of the kind of food service options these days. That doesn't have to rely on natural gas griddles, things like that. And then I think I was at a net zero conference last year that talked about it, and I'm not as well versed as that presenter was, but there's different control systems that can look at, so for example, like a griddle that has to maintain temperature for 8 hours a day, which in the past has just been full natural gas burners can maintain that temperature burning 8 hours straight, versus electric resistance systems, which can maintain that and kind of balance the temperature with how many hours they're operating. So there's different control systems out there as well. And I also know Nicole's just put something in the chat. So Nicole, do you want to kind of add on to that?
Yeah, we're getting more involved in electrifying commercial kitchens and restaurants and the project work that we're doing and on campuses. And, induction is definitely on the rise, and there are quite a few good resources out there. There's a few more that I'll find that I can throw in the chat about that are specific to California and some of the incentives available to electrify commercial kitchens. But, with the decarbonization policies across major cities, New York, San Francisco, Berkeley, San Jose. I put in the decarb network there. They show a map. The trail to electrify commercial kitchens is in progress. Like it's happening, and putting in gas is sometimes an unnecessary cost if you're thinking about what the legislation and policy is headed towards. So we're definitely seeing that technology. I'm working on a 1 million square foot development in Beverly Hills, and there's a bunch of restaurants, and the commercial kitchen designer is like, we have to size all the loads for electric appliances for the residential ranges and in the commercial kitchens by code. So adding gas is an extra cost. And he's like, the technology's here. It's Europe's 5 years ahead of the US. Electrolux is the US version of Thermo, and they're basically the leaders in providing induction technology and learning from what Europeans are doing. And so this is like market ready. And he's like, we shouldn't even waste our time putting in gas at this point, just the way the policy, and he's like hearing it from inspectors saying, yeah, it's only a matter of time when gas isn't going to be allowed. So it's really giving a boost to that, those appliances and the market readiness for them.
Well, folks, you have done an incredible job, and we certainly appreciate all the information. I want to take, the last 4 minutes that we've got. Are there any more questions out there from the group?
I have one question if I could ask, but I'll wait for others to ask theirs.
I think you're wide open, Nicole.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just, I'm really curious to learn more about where the campuses are at. So I really value the facilitated discussion, Fred, and asking those questions. My question kind of sums it up in terms of like, what are campuses primarily looking for from consultants, to further the BOG policy? Like where do people find is the real need right now?
Boy, I think one of the big things, it takes a long time and Ruben and Hussein and whoever, I can't see all the names, feel free to chime in. But one of the big things for the community colleges is time. So it takes a long time to develop a master plan. Typical one is 10 years in length. We assign budget numbers, go through the shared governance process that Ruben had talked about. It takes a long time to get all the stakeholders together to develop a plan. Here's what we need. Here's what we're going to do. How are we going to implement it? Maybe the money's not there. So a district goes out for a general obligation bond. They tell the community, here's what we're going to be spending our money on. Here's kind of a timeline on how we're going to develop it and implement it. And then all of a sudden there's a bunch of massive code changes that adds cost to a project. As California implements the green agenda, statute is one of the #1 ways by which to do it. And if a campus already has a master plan in place, they already have a bond in place, the money's kind of already encumbered across the calendar. And then all of a sudden, all of the cost escalation occurs. Encompass that with changes in economic conditions like we have right now. And the business office is put in a quandary. And then what it really means is that other folks that we said are not or will get a project, now they're not going to get one. And then sometimes things are already underway. Like for instance, I think John is on the call with us right now from Long Beach. They have a brand new food service kitchen over there. It's only a few years old. all probably gas fired. These are just some of the things, but the time consideration is really, really critical. And especially when the money that you're using for us to do capital improvements is all bond related, and the community's tied in. We've told them we're going to do one thing, and then the cost escalation, those are really kind of tying it up in the big picture. Those are some of the big issues.
I mean, Fred, you nailed it down, obviously, you know, and it's a huge challenge, but I believe also, you know, for us, we started our you know, SCAP plan, which is Sustainability Climate Action Plan, across 3 colleges. And we have been in the process for a year, and we are about halfway through, because we have to go through a major shared governance process. We believe it will be done by end of the year. Then what we try to leverage is really update our district standard, where we have those, you know, sustainability initiatives being part of the district standard that will be applicable for our future projects. And hopefully that will be embedded and, you know, within our, you know, design and, you know, planning, design and construction for future development projects. And obviously the more stringent the code would be and help us and force our hand to comply with the, you know, green initiatives, that would be the way to go as well.
It is you know, if you sum it down into one thing, I would have to say that the equation is a polynomial. There's so many variables that, yeah, I wish that it was an easy task, and it's not. And this we have a new bond at my campus, and one of the big things we had to go through was due to the fact that we have a new EFMP, it identified about $550 million worth of need. Well, our bonding capacity was a little under 300. So right out of the gate, you're already $250 million short. You got all these projects laid out, and that simply means that there's going to be a couple folks on campus. When I say folks, I mean the deans, because they're the ones that are in control of an individual program. They're not going to get their project. So just in order to get to the point where you can sequence your stuff, in order to develop the implementation plan, takes an enormous amount of work on the shared governance side just to get to that point, because somebody has to come to the realization that they're not going to get their project. Anybody else?
All I can say is add to that, Fred, is that I think facilities people are expected to be very flexible, very resilient, and wear that hard case, that turtle case shell on their back, because I know it's tough for them to have to be able to try to implement these with the limited resources that we have. But I do want to point out that there are a lot of resources that are available to people, to facilities folks, that could be directed in just that one direction. A lot of it can come from the utilities through incentives. We have the website that we have for the Community College Investor-Owned Utility Partnership, where you can point out a lot of training for staff. That there's free training on there if you look and dig into that a little bit. And also the fact that we have SEI here that's represented today through that Climate Corps program. Is amazing to have other resources and staff. I see Elizabeth is on here from one of my favorite places in the world, and that's Sitka, Alaska. She is I mean, there could be some great resources just on this page here. So again, I think people need to, you know, just take that opportunity and run with it.
And we're not letting Ron leave us, because he's our senior guy that we all look up to, and nobody has a better turtleback than Ron does.
You know what, Fred, I was going to say one thing is Tom from Maricosta. I mean, the uphill battle I've had here, our strategic plan since 2012 has identified hiring a sustainability coordinator. Still hasn't happened through program review. And then, you know, so that falls on me. And, you know, it's one of the many duties that I know a lot of us incorporate into our daily job. And then the other thing, you know, with our facilities master plan and bond, we had ambitious goals of LEED and LEED platinum and LEED silver and all the different things that are out there. And escalation in construction costs has stopped all that. We can't afford, we're losing projects because we're running out of money.
Yep. Yeah, I like that program review stuff and it, you know, how it kind of gets deferred.
Right.
Aries has a hand up.
Aries, go ahead.
Thanks, Ron and Fred. I just wanted to say, back to the original question, which was, I think, relating to the BOG policy and how it kind of will filter down to the individual districts. I think it's important to not totally rely on the BOG policy to get it right for the system or for each district, because, you know, their approach might be kind of one size fits all, whereas individual districts and colleges can have more aggressive goals and policies and plans in place. So, what, you know, I would hope that anybody that's considering a policy or a resolution or a master planning exercise or whatever you want to call it isn't waiting for the BOG to come out with an updated policy or a right-sized policy, but you know, each of our districts functions as its own government and can set its own policy that's more aggressive than what the BOG puts out. So I just want to kind of point that out for everybody that's interested in pursuing these measures, to say that you don't have to wait for that to happen, you know, to jump on this stuff.
Thank you, Aris. And Hoang did share the BOG resolution with everyone. And then you did have, you know, like for instance, at my campus, we took that one and then we augmented it a little bit and that became our resolution. So it's a good template. As Aris said, you can make it stronger if you want, or you can make it fit where it's more practical to your campus as well. Mm-hmm. All right, folks, I know that we're at about 11:06. Cameron, Nicole, Gordon, you guys did an awesome job. Tell Matt we said hello, and we certainly appreciate you joining us this morning. We really appreciate it, and you gave us some viable information.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you all.
Too.
So,
Thanks so
folks, let's see here. The next thing coming up, we got a break, and then we have George coming in at 11:15. So we'll cut the break a little bit short. We'll let you all go, and we'll see you back here at 11:15 for the next one. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh.
Thanks, Tara. So I see the folks from SKYFOLD here. Do we have George, and is it Kendall?
Yes, it's Kendall. Hello.
How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks, Fred.
Thank you for joining us so much.
Our pleasure.
So is that I can't tell on looking at on my computer, but is that a virtual screen that you have there, or are you actually in your office? I can't tell.
It's a virtual screen.
All right. So
my office is in Montreal, so
some people think I'm sitting in Starbucks, but I'm really not.
So I would like to ask the question of Fred or Tara, if you're seeing the presentation portion, or are you seeing the slide that is showing next slide?
So it looks like a slide.
Okay, just one presentation slide, though, correct?
Yeah, where it,
Yeah, we're not
that's
seeing
correct.
files
It's
right
not, it's the single.
Great. Okay, perfect.
Awesome. So welcome back, everyone. Is George on also, Kendall? I can't tell, huh?
He was on. I don't know if he's still muted, though. He'll have to unmute.
All right. Well, you know what? Thanks again for joining us this afternoon. I think we have everybody back from their break, and I'll just take just a quick moment to thank you guys for joining us and let everybody know that you have a wonderful presentation coming up for operable walls. Truly a very innovative form of an operable wall. And I know you guys have some installations on a few of our CCD campuses, and a lot of folks are not familiar with your company, and I think that they should be. So Kendall, I'm going to turn it over to you and George and your team, and take it away. And thanks again for joining us.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. So I'll wait to see if George is unmuted and if he's visible to everyone. George, are you there? Maybe not. He might be having some technical difficulties, but my name is Kendall Burton. I am the regional sales manager for SKYFOLD. I was on the call before the break and I heard someone mention Alaska. So I was thinking we were just going to be talking to people in Southern California, but it doesn't seem to be the case. So I cover the Southwest region, but I have colleagues in my company that cover as far as Alaska, and we're actually global via our distribution network. So I am based in Southern California, and George Sayeg is my partner locally here in Los Angeles. He is with a company called Partition Specialties, Inc. And Partition Specialties, Inc. is the exclusive distributor for SKYFOLD and our sister company, ModernFold, for that matter, in California. So he's here, and I cover a little bit of a wider area. So without further ado, I will minimize, or I'll get rid of my face here, and we'll get started. Let's see.
Good morning, all.
Oh, hi, George.
Morning, George.
All right. So I'm wondering how many of you have heard of SKYFOLD. Probably everyone's muted to not, interrupt or anything. But for those of you that aren't, we are a manufacturer of a vertical lift product. I'll start by just showing you this video. And of course, I want it to move. Go, there it goes. Hopefully you're seeing that in real time there. Okay, so what we do is we separate space. We are an operable wall manufacturer. We're known for our acoustical products. So we like to say that we begin in acoustic ratings where the other guys leave off. We are fully automated product. We are vertical products only. We store in the plenum, so we reduce any type of requirement on your floor plate for pockets or closets, etc. And we will get started. I'll kind of do a quick review of the 4 product lines that we offer. And then we'll just kind of move on to more of advantages for the end users. And then we'll do a photo gallery of higher ed installations that are actually national. So with SKYFOLD, like I said, we customize and build operable walls. We like to say that we unite flexibility, acoustics, design, performance, and longevity. We only have 4 product lines that we offer. With the Classic, you'll see that on your screen there, with the Classic being our oldest product line. We've been manufacturing operable walls for 29 years out of Montreal. And we'll start looking at some of the products right now. One of the 4 is our Zenith series. So the Zenith series is especially useful for smaller spaces because of its path of travel. Oftentimes you have to move the products away from the wall when it's in motion, but with the Zenith, it just unfolds and folds as it leaves its pocket or enters its pocket, and then it comes down in a nice streamlined fashion. So you don't have to move any product away from the wall when it's in motion. So there's a visual of the Zenith wall in motion. It goes up to 12 feet in height, and it's ideal for small classroom spaces or meeting room spaces because of that path of travel. We can do an acoustic rating anywhere from a 48 STC all the way to a 60. And there's the Zenith. Well, the Zenith was so wildly popular because of its path of travel that about 4 years ago, we launched the Zenith Premium series, which is the only one in this of our product lines that will offer this built-in or customized integrated closure panel that comes down and seals off that open gap in the plenum when the wall is deployed. The Zenith Premium can go up to 14 feet with a bottom of pocket or a ceiling height of 14 feet. It folds and the same way the Zenith product does, but then it does have that integrated pocket closure panel. It also comes standard with some LCD touchscreens, which can control the LED lighting that is incorporated into that closure panel if you choose to have it, or in the bottom panel of the wall, which serves as some additional ceiling lights when the wall is fully retracted. There you see the closure panel coming down and sealing off that site. Okay. And then moving on, that was the Zenith Premium series. Moving on to our classic wall. So our classic wall, like I said, this is the product that's been in existence the longest. 29 years ago, we launched the classic to the marketplace. We call it our tried and true wall because of the number of installations globally, very successful long-term installations. The Classic series has products that range from 51 to 60. And like the others, I forgot to mention, we also have panel absorption capabilities for NRC. So any type of hard surfaces that bounce sound in a room, we can help absorb that sound. This has become our big wall series. So when we need to expand beyond 12 or 14 feet in height, we turn to the Classic because we have the ability to go up to 36 feet in height as a bottom of pocket dimension or ceiling dimension, finished ceiling dimension. And notice that how that closes much more like an accordion as it folds up and stores in the plenum. And that is our Classic series. We have one interior glass wall product. This is called Mirage. It's also fully automated and a vertical lift. It carries an STC rating of 33. It has the ability to go up to 24 feet in height and unlimited in length. You'll see those little side guides on the wall. Those are just merely side guides. There's no track involvement there, but these side guides carry the safety sensors, which much like your garage door with an infrared beam of light, if that light is interrupted, the wall will automatically stop. So the safety is built into the product. It's a frame and tile system. It's a lot thinner than our acoustic wall series. It's 5.5 inches thick, but pretty much anything can go into this frame, including blast resistant, bullet resistant glass, frosted glass, LumaCore. As long as it meets a specific tolerance or thickness, it can work for that frame. So now those are the 4 products. So let's talk about some advantages of SKYFOLD. So obviously ease of operation with a very quick setup time, highly reliable product. We do offer the superior acoustics in the operable wall industry. We save your floor space, and we offer the most aggressive warranty in the industry at a 10-year or 10,000 cycle warranty. So advantages for the end user. Oftentimes we hear of the facility teams being called in multiple places all at the same time to reconfigure space, reconfigure walls. Not too many professors or teachers or TAs operate their own walls because they're cumbersome, they're heavy, they're hard to use, they haven't been properly trained, etc. Well, with the advantage of an operable partition, anyone can operate the wall. We have some options with control paneling, so you can have a key with a push button, but then that means that the person with the key has the control. When you open it up to the digital touchpad, anyone can be issued a 4-digit access code to operate the wall. So a professor with a teaching assistant or a trusted student, anyone can operate this wall with the code. And so you don't have to wait for the facility teams to come and move that. So we also talked about the superior acoustics for the product. With conventional operable walls, which you all are probably familiar with, those are about 3 to 4¼ inches in thickness. The SKYFOLD wall is nearly 12 inches in thickness, so it's 11¾ all in. So what that does is it's kind of like a dual wall configuration system. So I like to kind of say that from the outside in and working at it like a sandwich, you kind of start with this exterior steel face, and then there's a little paper honeycomb core right behind that. Then there's a steel backer. So that paper is just trying to prevent vibration between the steel panels. Behind that is about 2 inches of acoustic batting, followed by a 7-inch air gap. The air gap houses the lifting mechanisms. And then when you work towards that back of that sandwich, it's another 2 inches of acoustic batting, a steel back, honeycomb core, steel face. So it's a double wall configuration. This is what is affording us the superior acoustic performance of the product. Also, not to mention that airspace, which helps diffuse sound transmission between rooms. Because we have nearly 12 inches of thickness on the wall, we do offer seals at where those panels meet your fixed construction. So you're going to see double seals nearly 12 inches apart at your ceiling, on your floor, and also on your walls. Some of you caught the earlier video showing the deployment of these seals, look closely. These are our fully automated end seals. So once the wall is fully deployed, the seals will rock out from within the wall and make contact with the wall itself. So at no point are those seals already deployed, and they're not going to mar your wall finish when the wall is in motion. So fully automated side seals there. Something we do like to point out is that SKYFOLD is the only one in the industry that tests both the full panel assembly, which is also called a system test, and they also test the individual panels. Oftentimes we are compared to other manufacturers, but most other manufacturers only test the mere panel, so without the seal. The seals are always going to be the weak point for acoustic control. But something also unique about SKYFOLD in that we work with so many acousticians, we actually market our products based on the lower assembly rating. So our Zenith 48, which is our entry price point product, while it has a 48 assembly or full system performance rating, the individual the individual panel test is rated at a 57. So again, like I said in the beginning, we really do begin at acoustic performance where the other operable manufacturers leave off. As for more advantages, we are incredibly flexible with our design, with the layouts of the products. We can intersect classroom spaces or lecture hall spaces. We can intersect our own wall, creating T or L configurations. We have a lot of flexibility also with angled rooms, so we can customize the length of our panels and do mitered edges to accommodate for any type of wall or room with angled walls. More advantages, it takes a lot less time and labor to set up these products. We like to use the example of a ballroom. So many of us have been to weddings where you're in the grand ballroom and you look around and you see the panel stacks or where the panels maybe enter their closets. So looking at this example on your screen, you have 3 long panels and you have 6 shorter walls that are intersecting. Notice those little closets that are there dedicated. I'll talk about those in a second. But the setup time when you're looking at a manual operation versus an automated operation, you know, the manual products, as you know, you have to walk each individual panel down its run through complicated tracks. And once you're done setting up those big walls and dropping those floor seals, then you go back and you have to set up every small wall. So it's an enormous amount of time spent setting up these partitions. When you have access to just push a button and the wall will set itself up the right way every time and put itself away the right way every time, and anybody can do it, it's an enormous amount of time savings. And of time, of course, is money, as you all know. We really see this savings in time with the larger walls. Once we get maybe into the 40-foot wall beyond, it's a difference of nearly an hour or hours in the case of that ballroom setup. So a lot of time savings with automation. With the vertical product, you're also going to find space savings. So we don't store on the floor plate. Going back to this ballroom idea, notice those little blue circles on your screen. Those are closets. Those are closets that are dedicated. In the example is a 20,000 square foot ballroom. If you liken that to a gymnasium, maybe that more applies to what you all are dealing with, or big student centers, student unions. But think of all that floor space that's getting saved if you're not storing your product on the floor plate. In this example, you can save 1,700 square feet of floor space storing your vertical partitions in the plenum. There's a little bit of additional savings as the wall folds like an accordion up into itself. I like to give the example of a 9-foot high wall. A 9-foot high wall pockets in about 14¼ inches of space. So it's just a mere 14.5. That's your continuous obstruction in the plenum. But you would require some hanging brackets in the motor mount as well. So all in, maybe about 23.5 inches of plenum space required for a 9-foot high wall. And we can help with any ceiling height. We can help you with those requirements very easily. More advantages. I heard some mention of escalation and pricing of steel. As you know, we utilize a lot of steel and aluminum in our products. But there's also a huge requirement for steel for structural. You need to support these partitions. We're comparing an operable horizontal moving wall and the SKYFOLD wall, which is in blue on the right. If we're comparing two walls side by side, 24:9 at a 51 STC rating, so we're trying to be very fair. By the virtue of the manufacturers we selected, we know the weight of the product, and our structural engineers have said because of the load factor, that's the most important thing, more so than the weight, the SKYFOLD takes less structural steel to support it from above. So if you are comparing steel to support these products, you need a lot less of it to support a product that's lighter in weight and a dead load on your structural steel. And we can help with supporting documentation there too. SKYFOLD is incredibly reliable. We have these yo-yo drums up in the ceiling that is using aircraft grade cables to hoist those panels up. So making for a very silent motion. You don't usually hear the wall when it's in motion, but also without the chains or tracks, you have less issues with maintenance requirements, breakdowns and chain slippage. So it's all on this aircraft graded cable. Some of our oldest walls now still utilizing original motor parts. Maybe they've had to been prettied up or modernized a little bit with their fabrics, but we have some walls in Toronto and Las Vegas that are 28 years old and operating today with the original parts. We offer the most robust industry warranty, and that is a 10-year or 5,000 cycles. The standard in the industry is a basic 2 years. So with that, you can rest assured there is definitely some longevity in the products and some guarantees there. As for any type of project that is looking to do a LEED certification or WELL certification, we can assist. We do have HPD and EPD documents on all of our products, and we do contribute to WELL in 3 categories. We are happy, our team is happy to work with your team to maximize the points, the ratings for your goals, for your building. Now to the fun part. Let me check my time real fast. Okay. So this is image heavy. I'll go fairly fast. Please speak up if you want me to go back to an image. but I'd like to show you some applications in higher ed installations. There's going to be a lot in California here, but a lot of these are also national. So we wanted to show you some applications of SKYFOLD in community spaces on higher ed campuses. So this is showing our glass wall product. This is the same installation. They use that space behind the glass wall as pre-function space, and then they open up that space for larger products. That is the same exact space showing our acoustic wall on the left and that glass wall on the right, or in the far back, I should say. This is a big, very tall wall at an academy that uses this space for an NPR, music performances, etc. And this is an interesting use of space. I wish I had the, behind that wooden SKYFOLD wall at the top of the stairs there's a small meeting room, classroom space that the students can use. They can retract the wall and open it up for a grand common space. For those in California, this is the Johnson Student Center at Santa Ana College. This one was just installed in the last 18 months or so. Notice the two SKYFOLDs in the ceiling there. You'll see a picture a little bit later and I'll bring it to your attention, but they really utilize SKYFOLD with intersecting wall capabilities to maximize their floor space and the flexibility of the space for this student union. There's another interesting shot with some foldable seating up there. We also do a lot of laboratory spaces. So you'll see that this one is kind of an anatomy lab. So for training, maybe this is a different university, another anatomy lab. We also do tech labs. So imagine, see how that table is close to the wall. That's probably the zenith. Oh, it's not, it's deceiving. Anyway, so technology labs as well, and simulation labs. As for classroom and lecture spaces, a lot of the classrooms we're seeing are utilizing the built-in marker surface application to use that for brainstorming or note-taking on the wall. It can also be used as an impromptu projection screen. It's not 100% ideal, but can be used in a pinch for something quick with that marker surface. There's another one with some note-taking on the back wall. A lot of mixed materials also being utilized. There's a lot of flexibility there. This is a lecture hall at Texas A&M. Notice how we can do the fixed panels to accommodate at those stepped and sloped intersections. This is an interesting one. This is showing a 90-degree intersection on a sloped floor application. And I want to say this is University of Southern Florida. There's that from a different angle. And this is where we're really known for some athletic spaces. We do have panel impact rating tests or panel impact tests on our website. This shows like multiple finishes in this big, well, I guess it is a Big Ten gymnasium, Carver Hawkeye Arena. This happens to be one of the two longest walls in California, 147 feet long at USC's Galen Center. This is the athletic training center there. These were installed in 2005, so back to the durability. These are still operational to this day. With all the basketballs and volleyballs hitting it over the last decade and a half, they've had to do some refurbishment of some panels and some trim pieces, but still original motors and components from the 2005 install. And this is a real interesting niche that we found ourselves in. These are a football training room. So we have kind of found our little niche here. We have in excess of 20 of these installations where you have this football meeting room. You're dividing the offensive and defensive sides. So the walls are down. You've got your offensive coach screaming at the kids on one side and your defensive coach screaming at the kids on the other. And then they can retract the wall, keep the kids all in place and scream at them all together. And we have a few more images of that same setup. We can be in training facilities. This is a university training room. This happens to be the Green Bay Packers indoor training facility. It shows the glass mirage wall. So I do like to throw this in there, but it's not at a university. And then dance studios. And with miscellaneous, this is a broadcasting studio at University of Miami. So lots of flexibility there. These are areas that are creating walls at the egress and entrance to cafeterias on universities. And we're almost wrapped up, but I will show you some unique applications, which you've probably seen in some of the pictures. So we do offer the stepped and sloped applications. We can intersect our walls as well. As I move along, my roller ball isn't cooperating. There we are. So intersecting our walls. This is that Johnson Student Center. So they created some unique spaces with the intersecting walls at that on that campus. This is a SKYFOLD acoustic wall intersecting a SKYFOLD glass mirage wall. There's another image of that. We can assist with egress with our partnership and our sister company, ModernFold. Our engineers do work together to combine the two products to work for egress, because we know that sometimes you need a door and you need egress. We also can work, this is a ModernFold glass wall product on the exterior, and they're separating these classrooms with the SKYFOLD acoustic walls. And I think that's a Euro wall. And as for the options, whoever's designing this, you do have some push button controls, LCD touchscreens, LED lighting with bezel varieties, some seal color changes, white or black, and frame colors, especially on our Mirage frame, so highly customizable. This is, I just did two pictures of this, but these are some recent installations in California for higher ed. If we open it up to education, it nearly triples with the K through 12 utilizing the wall product. So happy to share these lists with you if you're curious about other campuses that are using this product. We have about 90 higher ed walls to date. Probably more than that, just under different categories. So thank you so much. And now I will share my face again and see if any of you have questions on the product.
Well, Kendall, that was absolutely amazing. What a wonderful product you guys have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we saw some of our colleagues on your list there. Not only some colleges, but some of our constituents on the architectural side.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
We might hear it from Joe Melendez. I mean, I hear he's got familiarity with
Yes.
that.
Well, thanks. Well, first of all, thank you for that presentation. Yes, we do have the SKYFOLD system at two of our buildings, at recent buildings we just completed. The first one was at Johnson Student Center, and the other one is at the Science Center. The Johnson Student Center, we created what looks to be a 4-office partition with a main conference, which opens up to one large conference.
Nice.
The idea behind that was to use, obviously, the main conference for banquet and other events, but then also partition it out to 900 square foot of classrooms, which is partitioned out to 4. I must say, I'll tell you, what you're seeing here is what it looks like. It is a beautiful product, and it's just a push of a button, and it's very quiet. I mean, when we have our conferences, it's you really don't hear any noise across the office area. So I would highly recommend this product. It's a little bit pricey, Okay, let's make sure we know that it's pricey, but it's worth it if you really want to create a look, and it's functional. And we also have at the Science Center, we have it in our engineering lab, so to separate those two spaces. And again, everyone loves it, so I would recommend it if you have the budget for it.
Thanks, Joe.
You know, the true definition of value takes into consideration cheap versus inexpensive. And, you know, if it's functional and has longevity and works well and saves time, then it's definitely worth it. Kendall, I had just two questions myself. One's on the business side. As you mentioned that Modern Fold is also, it's within the parent company as well.
That's correct. Yes.
What's the proportion of the business now comparing a traditional operable wall to the SKYFOLD one that is obviously really, really nice?
Well, I think maybe George can give you more specifics. I'd probably guess that every 15
Well,
modern
right now,
folds, you
I'd
might get
say-
one SKYFOLD. Just guessing.
Modern Fold, because it goes to such a wide range of applications from the very low end to the middle, high end categories of installations, is probably 60% of the installations. But SKYFOLD has dramatically increased their percentage in projects over the last several years. And we see once a company or a school district, whoever it may be, installs their first installation, they never go back to a conventional operable wall because of the flexibility, the ease of use, the dependability, the space savings, the warranty. The other things that we didn't really talk too much about is the structural savings with the SKYFOLD versus a conventional operable wall. And with thousands of pounds of additional steel that is required for the horizontal wall, that nobody talks about where that cost is. The general contractor doesn't break that out for you. So when we were doing a life cycle costing, you know, SKYFOLD pretty soon gets very close to a conventional operable wall. And by the way, in case you hadn't noticed, price of materials have gone up dramatically in the last few months. And the Modern Fold type wall is getting a lot closer to the SKYFOLD initially. And if you want to compare automated against automated, we're getting real close. And it's just still not in the same ballpark as far as quality and performance. They're both good walls, but to be honest with you, SKYFOLD's the only one that's tested as an assembly. So if you want a 56 or a 61 or a 60 STC wall, you got to go with SKYFOLD because you know you're going to get that. The other thing that a lot of general contractors do to the owners, they value engineer the value out of the job, trying to save you some money. And they put in just conventional construction around any kind of a wall. So if you specified a SKYFOLD 51 and the GC puts in some other product, you might only get a 33 in the field. With the SKYFOLD, as you saw in that chart, our system test is what we specify as STC. And the GC really needs to construct the surrounding area according to E557, which is the requirement for operable partition construction surrounding area. So those are really important things for the owners to understand and tell their architect, hey, this is what I want. NIC is really more important than STC. And we want this to be something that's going to last for decades. SKYFOLD is the only product on the market that lasts for decades and has a warranty for 10 years.
Okay, so now I have a technical question. Going back to that, the multi-purpose room as an example. One of the things that we're very cognizant of is, so let's say we'll paint the picture as we're going to divide the multi-purpose room into two spaces. And let's say that one side is going to be used and one side is not. So especially for this group, one of the things that we like to do is to optimize our space on the energy side. So let's say that we have two different air handlers. One side of the wall is now we're going to reduce load. It's not going to be heated or cooled, whereas the other side of the wall is going to be. What's the R value on the wall? Do you have any data on that for heat transfer?
Gosh,
That's
I
a
don't
good
know.
one.
I don't think anybody's ever asked me that one before.
Yeah, no, that's one I'd have to go back to the factory with that question and get you the answer.
That would be
Happy to
awesome,
do it.
Kendall, because I'll tell you what, especially in a space like that, and with the energy code the way it is, that's people are going to start looking at things like that.
Okay.
So if you could get us back that data, we'll make certain that we get it back out to the group.
Wonderful. Okay.
Sure.
You always hear about the STC rating on an operable wall, but you never
Right.
hear about the R value.
Good to
Right.
know. All right. We'll get that.
And
to
most
you.
people don't talk about the NIC because although it's the same test, one's in the field under real conditions and STC is in a laboratory under perfect conditions. So there's totally different results.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any other questions from the group? It's an open door.
What about safety features on these units? I mean, there's always going to be somebody that's going to act crazy.
Take that.
Yeah, I'll do that one. So safety is actually built into this product. Unlike the conventional horizontal moving walls, you have to specify safety in. So here's this built-in safety on the acoustic walls. We have a essentially like a bladder between the dual walls. If it meets resistance at all, the wall will stop, retract for a few seconds, and wait for further command. So if it comes down onto a table or a chair or anything in the way, the wall moves at a rate of a foot per 10 seconds. So the videos are sped up for your viewing pleasure, but it doesn't move that fast. So if you really want to get yourself hit, you're going to have to wait and ask for it to happen. The push button controls are in that if one user takes their finger off the push button, the wall will automatically stop. We do recommend, especially in environments where there's kids or people acting like kids, that there are two users operating the wall simultaneously, opposite ends, opposite side. So then line of sight is really your best defense. And then finally, on the glass interior wall, we do have that built-in infrared beam, but the same controls occur. So one user takes their finger off the control button and the wall stops automatically. So built-in safety.
Well, sometimes the people operating the wall might be a little,
the kids.
Yeah, they might be trying to crush beer cans or something with them. Who knows? But
well, a beer can's not going to make it.
No.
My faith's in the wall, but yes, if it does meet a certain level of resistance, it will stop. So
that's awesome. Good.
Does anybody else have any questions for the folks?
And Fred, I think I'll say one more thing, and that is per Joe's point with the cost cycle, and George also touched on this, we can assist with cost to own scenarios. We really see a 3 to 5 year time frame for your ROI on these walls versus the horizontal walls. They're especially sped up with more usage on the wall and the longer walls, to be honest, because then we really take into consideration the steel that was used on those longer walls. So a 3 to 5 year period is where we're seeing the ROI, and we can work with your teams and really put in all of the data on related to the walls that they're comparing, and then kick out one of these great ROI comparison sheets for you.
I'm not a door engineer, but it looks to me like you guys get a lot of benefit from using the aircraft cable instead of the individual cars that are running on the track. I mean, that's where, honestly, we have several operable walls and the cars are nothing but a big problem.
Right.
Right.
All right, folks, anybody else?
Well, if there's anything that you want us to look at please give me a call, send me a drawing, some dimensions. We'll be glad to do some preliminary design for you, give you some drawings, details. Could even do some budget pricing for you. So
Thanks for
and
your
that
time
doesn't take
today.
very long. Maybe a
And
day or two.
Fred,
George,
Fred,
and
I would-
Kendall. Go ahead, Hussein.
sorry, I would assume that we will receive a copy of their presentation and probably, some
Yes.
brochure. Yeah.
Tara's probably going to post it for you guys.
Awesome.
So Kendall and George, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate
welcome.
it. That was an awesome presentation, and I love the videos. I mean, a picture tells 1,000 words.
Yes, and
Great.
we look
Thank you,
forward to
Fred.
taking you to see one in person.
We're going to go to Santa Ana College.
You
Yeah,
betcha.
I'd love to meet you there. And thanks again for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
You
care,
guys
Fred.
have a great
Everyone.
day.
Bye now.
You too.
Bye, Lisa.
Bye-bye. All right.
If I can get out here.
Tara, do you know if we have Hoang on board?
I am here.
Hoang, how you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good. So are you folks back at the office or no?
Not yet.
Not yet. But you still look as good as you did last time, Hoang. I can tell you that. And everybody feels the same way.
Not as good as you, Fred. I was looking great over here.
Thank you for joining us today. And we've been waiting for you. Thanks for accommodating our schedule too. I know you guys are extremely busy up there. And, you got to always say the same thing, even though it's not the same. We appreciate everything you do for us, Hoang. Thanks for joining us again. And I'll throw it over to you. I know you got some information for us to share.
Thank you, Fred. Good afternoon, everybody. Looks like I missed quite the meeting today. Here, just give you some updates really quick. Let me see if I can share the screen. Give it a second for the PowerPoint to load up properly. All right. Some quick updates for everybody. As you're all well aware, a call letter was sent out recently. The August due date for this year for your IPPs, FPPs, and your 5-year plans. For those districts who may not be able to make that due date, please reach out to your analyst to get a little extension on that. I wanted to add that all projects that were submitted last year, FPP wise, we're actually requesting for all these projects to be funded through general funds. So that's 43 projects in total. As you're all well aware, there is a big bump in the general fund this year. So we're throwing our hat in the ring, trying to get all these projects funded. The CCI, we're working on that right now. It's going to be adjusted to 8903 and EPI of 4671. We're trying to work that out for Department of Finance this week and next. So that way, as you're all well aware, the pandemic has really impacted impacted the construction costs for everybody. So trying to get as much as possible out of that from Department of Finance and the general funds. Moving on to affordable student housing, we do have a task force. We're working on a framework for that. That's comprised of your board members, our board members, district representatives, trying to learn from the districts on your current housing needs and what we should do on our side to help out. Planning to present our findings in May and later in November. So basically looking at adding student housing to Fusion and looking at the different types of data metrics that we should be collecting as part of that information. also part of the affordable student housing. Should all be aware that the Department of Finance has reviewed all the applications. They came out with 5 recommended projects for 21-22, 7 eligible projects for 22-23 and 23-24. There are some projects that they deemed ineligible because they combined the planning grant along with the construction grants together. So they're requesting those projects to be resubmitted as either planning or construction only. For planning grants, $18.2 million was split up between all planning grant submissions. So for those districts that requested a bevy of different types of grants, Department of Finance thought that there were just too many requests to be shared between all the applications. It was roughly almost $200 million in planning grant requests. And you're all well aware, only 25 million was going to be allocated. So they just split that up between everybody. Coming soon in June 2022, a approved grant list is going to come out. Right now, the Senate and Assembly are reviewing the applications. So we'll see what comes out of it in the next couple of months. Big surprise, no, not big surprise, but big commendation to the coalition. They are recommending that the 5 recommended projects and the 7 eligible projects to be funded this cycle. So that way no one is left behind due to increased construction costs for all projects. So a better start if everything could get funded this year. Climate action sustainability. The framework was approved by the Board of Governors last year, and we've added 2 fiscal advisory committee members to the climate action sustainability task force. We've also added a climate action fellow to help us out writing out the phase 2 guidelines. So Claire Moisson is helping us out with the guidelines, working on the benchmarking guidelines for STARS and also the framework goals. I've actually just met her earlier and she's doing a great job. Hopefully that will come out later this year, toward the end of the year, because her fellowship ends in October, I believe. We'll try to get her to present to both the NorCal and SoCal facilities meetings, but I'll have to connect with Fred and Terrence on that one. The Physical Plant and Instructional Support Program is hopefully gets another big bump this year at $387.6 million. That number will fluctuate as they go through the budget process, but hopefully it does not go any lower and hopefully it goes up. One of the biggest surprises that we've been working on is adding energy efficiency to the PPIS program and trying to figure out what types of projects would be allowable as part of that. With that stated, there's actually a survey that we're hoping that everybody can help us out on. There is a link here to the survey and just checking to see what kind of projects you guys have for sustainability, or what projects you guys are planning for sustainability or climate action on your campuses. I'll be sending this presentation out so that way everybody could be able to see this link here. And with that, I'll be taking any questions that you may have.
Well, Hoang, thank you. Just a quick one on the questionnaire. Are you going to send it out in a letter form on the listserv also, or is it only going to be embedded in that one document?
Only in the document, Fred. But yeah, it's not official from our office. Something through the CCC-IOU program.
Yeah, It's all in the newsletter, in the community college newsletter. You could find it there. And it's also on the website, on the utility website. But it's just a means of us being able to build a pipeline of projects for the system. And also, with the potential of $387 million coming out, it takes a while to get those applications done and everything. So it would be great to have that information so you can leverage these projects and maybe do more with your portion of your 387 million by working with the utilities, by working with the various grant programs that are involved with the California Energy Commission, or in other resources that are available to you. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of resources out there. We just want to be able to make these available to everyone.
Ron, do you think that we could, well, actually, I'll go back to Hoang. Is it possible to send that out on our listserv to all the folks that are in our group? In SoCal and then in NorCal too?
Yeah, I sent it out to the NorCal one earlier.
Okay. I just want to, the only thing it's better if you get more people involved in the response. That way you have a better tally.
Okay. Let me send it over to this group, and then the listserv for the SoCal. Can you send that out for me, Fred?
Sure. Because I think some of the folks, how on a typical day, we all get hundreds of emails, and I think it might get overlooked.
Yeah.
Not that we overlook anything. I know you guys don't.
I have a question, Juan. You mentioned about 43 potential projects to be funded from general fund. Do you know what's the dollar value from the state as being an allocation from the state for those projects?
Not yet, Hussein. Like I stated, we're doing a CCI adjustment for those projects.
Okay.
You guys submitted it at forget what, 7120 or something like last year, or something along those lines. So we're updating them so that way the costs are reflective of April's California Construction Cost Index. So it's going to be a big bump. If not, your districts that get those projects funded or potentially funded would be at a detriment, because costs have gone up so high since then. So we don't want a shortfall for this request at all.
Sure.
Hoang, I had heard a rumor that there were some projects that there was a possibility on the funding side of being up front rather than in multiple fund releases. Is that true or no?
In progress of talks.
Who do I send a Starbucks card to? Just kidding.
So, Fred, are you saying that the state will fund the full project?
It was only on some, and not on
some,
obviously the big ones. I think it was probably the A category ones where the dollar value is a lot smaller.
Right.
I had heard that. I don't.
Okay.
It's just a rumor. I don't know if it's Hoang kind of did say it was in process. So.
Yeah, I have to set up a meeting with Department of Finance and talk about it. It's been a while since Ready Access has been implemented within our program. So we got to talk about it with finance, because they don't recall what that is.
Probably not. All right. Anybody else have any questions? You got Hoang he's on the hook right now. He's your guy.
Making life too easy.
That's what happens when you're that popular. Nobody wants to ask you any questions, Hoang.
Well, send me an email if you have questions or follow up. I'll be able to reach out and answer them.
How's everybody else in the office?
Doing great as can be.
Awesome, huh? Well, I got to give a big shout out for our representative. Land's doing an awesome job. You can tell her I said that.
Thank you. I will.
And then tell everybody else that the group says hello. We miss seeing them. Have you guys heard anything about, a date maybe where you actually do go back, or no?
Well, Human Resources sent out an email or task stating whether our work can be completed at home. For the most part, our jobs can be. We'll come into the office as needed for meetings or the like. So if you guys are coming into the office for a meeting, reach out to your analyst beforehand, so that way you can schedule something that they'll come in and talk about your projects or to greet you.
So you know what that means, Ron? That means that when we were going up there to have our, quarterly meeting, everybody show up because they're so excited to see everybody.
There you go.
Right?
Exactly.
All right. Well, no one has any more questions for Hoang. Thank you very much for the update. And let's see what does the time look like? We got 12:12. And Ron, are the folks here with the CEC?
Yes, I see Brent. He's done a great job at the NorCal group. So I think he's done a great job there. So he's here and I think he's ready.
Well, let's give them the opportunity to start early. Mm-hmm.
Sounds good to me. So yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen with you. Hold on just a moment.
And thank you for being so adaptable, Brent. We appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no worries. Thank you for having me here. And I'm also happy to get started early. Oops, let me run screen. Let me make sure. Okay, can you see my presentation?
Perfect.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. Hello to everyone. And thank you to the organizers and participants of this meeting. My name is Brent Kelsey. I work at the California Energy Commission. I'm here also with Daniel Johnson. He's on the line. And so we're here today because we were invited to talk to you about the California Building Energy Benchmarking Program. So throughout this presentation, I would like to talk a bit about how the program fits into the state's overarching climate goals and a bit about Assembly Bill 802, which directed the Energy Commission to develop the benchmarking program. So second, I wanted to highlight some of the common goals that are shared between the state and the California Community College Chancellor's Office. Then I wanted to walk through some of the standardized metrics that are available through the US EPA tool, Energy Star Portfolio Manager. Next, I wanted to discuss a framework for implementing change through informed decision making. And finally, I wanted to share some resources that could help you on your journey to improve the performance of buildings throughout your campuses. And so for the rest of the presentation, I'm actually going to save my bandwidth and go off of video. All right. So to set the stage for why California has implemented the Building Energy Benchmarking Program, I thought it would be appropriate to discuss one of California's largest identified goals, and that is to combat the existential threat of climate change. So through executive order and legislation, California has focused on ways to decrease greenhouse gas emissions from existing buildings. In 2015, Assembly Bill 802 was signed into law. One of the key aspects of AB 802 was to develop this program, the benchmarking program. I like using the following quote from the text of AB 802 because I believe it sums up the framing of the program really well. So per AB 802, it is the extent of the legislature to support strategies that enhance energy efficiency. Building owners should have access to their building's energy usage information, which enables understanding of a building's energy usage for improved building management and investment decisions. It is the intent of the legislature that the State Energy Resources Conservation and Development Commission create a benchmarking and disclosure program through which building owners of commercial and multifamily buildings above 50,000 square feet of gross floor area will better understand their energy consumption through standardized energy use metrics. So, access to building level data is a key component of this program. One of the things that AB 802 did was to mandate that utilities maintain and provide aggregated building energy use data to building owners or their agents upon request. So starting in 2018, it became mandatory for owners of large commercial buildings to submit their building's energy usage and characteristics information to the state on an annual basis. Large multifamily buildings were required to start reporting annually the next year in 2019. The state of California and the California Community College's Chancellor's Office have common goals when it comes to increasing the performance of existing buildings. In 2021, the Chancellor's Office climate sustainability goals represent calls of action to reduce GHG emissions, develop green buildings, reduce energy intensity in existing buildings, and address other things as well, such as waste and water use efficiency. This chart on the right displays 3 subcategories of areas to improve. It's important to note that while we're discussing energy improvements, just like I stated, some of the other climate sustainability goals identify other target areas to improve, reducing waste and water, like I just addressed. So addressing the performance of any aspect of a building begins with understanding what a building is using through high quality data benchmarking and by using standardized metrics. So when we're talking about the standardized metrics, the one that is most often used when it comes to energy and buildings is energy use intensity. So this is a standardized metric used to gauge energy performance of a building. It is the amount of energy used from all sources, such as grid electricity or fossil gas, even propane, divided by the floor area of the building. And then what Energy Star portfolio manager will do is it'll calculate your energy use intensity and also calculate a weather normalized energy use intensity as well. So a weather normalized energy use intensity or energy normalization calculates the amount of energy your building would have used during an average year. So that way anomalous hot or cold years can be compared without the impacts of those extra heating and cooling loads. So that way you can actually see how your building is performing over time without having to worry about the weather for that particular year. So where applicable, ESPM or Energy Star Portfolio Manager has a metric called a Energy Star score. And so the Energy Star score allows for comparisons of buildings with similar use types across the nation. So this metric considers both weather and climate in this metric. That way we can compare these buildings nationwide. And the Energy Star scores are important to know. Energy Star scores are not available for all building types. However, they are available for the most common ones, such as office buildings, residence halls, dormitories, multifamily housing. These are just to name a few. It's a very simple metric. It's from a scale of 1 to 100, 1 being the worst performing, 100 being the best, and 50 representing a national median. In addition to some of these energy metrics, there's also water and waste as well. So for those campuses that were interested in benchmarking and looking at their usage of water or waste, these metrics can also be looked at and compared over time within Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So it's a one place where you could have energy, water, and waste metrics and comparisons in one spot. The Energy Commission makes the benchmarking program data available to the public through downloadable data sets and through our public disclosure dashboard. So the dashboard allows users to filter and to view key metrics of building performance from buildings throughout the state. The downloadable data sets and public dashboard are available on our website, as well as a helpful instructional video on how to use the dashboard. And so the image on the left is actually from our website. It shows where you can download the links to download the data, and then you can see also a link to our dashboard. And then on the right here is actually the image of the dashboard itself. So to reiterate, the understanding best understand your building's performance begins with high quality data benchmarking. So using weather normalized EUI gives you a really great idea of how a building performs when the effects of weather are removed. Using the public disclosure dashboard I just mentioned, I pulled together some information here from 2019, just looking at a few different campuses. And we're seeing just a little bit of a chart down here at the bottom of this slide. So here we're seeing a breakdown of weather normalized EUI and an EUI by fuel type. So when you create an ESPM account and add data, you'll be able to see information such as this. This just happens to be using our public disclosure dashboard to view it. However, again, once you add your own data to your ESPM account, you can actually see your metrics breaking down into different ways as well. So one thing to really drive home is that benchmarking inherently does not decrease GHG emissions or reduce energy use intensity. What benchmarking does is give you the information needed to develop a strategy for building management. So aligning with the climate action plan goals and reducing energy costs, those are just two examples of next steps. Of course, this all starts with benchmarking the building's data. So from the benchmarking website, we have a list of resources that could help with planning and implementing energy improvements. From there, you could explore options to learn about things such as energy auditing, retrofitting, finding qualified energy professionals, financing, exploring potential utility rebates, and other programs. So here's a list, and I'm going to share the slide deck and presentation after the meeting here. But here's a list of resources that I have compiled. We have some resources for the different utilities in Southern California, resources on how to use Energy Star Portfolio Manager, a very helpful one for how to actually benchmark a campus, because there is some best practices and guidance on how to do that. As well as the CEC's benchmarking site, where we have a lot of FAQs and helpful information and videos. And then I included, let's see here, resources for commercial buildings. So I'm just going to actually go ahead and click on this really quick just to show you what it looks like. And so here's kind of what a screenshot I was just showing from, I think, the last slide. So if we expand some of these topics, we can see in this example, energy auditing. So we can look at guides for energy auditing and certain DOE resources, or if we're interested in financing, we take a look at some of these, Energy Star Rebate Finder and so forth, PACE programs, utility rebate programs. Again, there's going to be some Southern California, let me see here, Southern California specific ones for you folks. So I just wanted to click on that and show what that looked like. Okay. Oh, excuse me for one moment. I need to bring back the okay. All right, so yeah, this is my contact information. My name is Brent Kelsey again, and then Daniel Johnson as well. He's also a point person for this program, so I included him as well. And then this is our benchmarking email, where we are very responsive. So please reach out if you have any questions, in our hotline as well. But yeah, thank you for allowing me to talk to you today, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Brent, thank you very much for the presentation and for the update.
Absolutely.
We love hearing about that. We're all trying to get on, portfolio manager. Ron, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. Some
Sure.
have been successful. There's still some things to work through, but I can tell you that all the CCDs are trying diligently to get on board with that too.
Absolutely, and yeah, we're working closely with Ron and Lisa, and I'm happy to hear the progress about all the CCDs that are working through this, and we understand that it can be difficult at times. So we're here to offer support in whatever way you need. So we're here for you.
Usually, it's not a difficulty of want. It's usually hate to say it, it's a technology thing. All of a sudden, this works, that doesn't. Ron can tell us a little bit more, but we're getting there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've had some trouble with some connections, with portfolio manager because of some of the problems that happened 4 or 5 years ago, I guess, when we had some issues with the federal government shutting down. And I guess portfolio manager got shut down at the same time. And we had a lot of efforts in community colleges to get that all back up and running. And now I think we've changed some things around, and I think there's an opportunity to get this done. Lisa Imai has been really supporting this program and even supporting districts. She'll even work with you, putting some of your information in if we got it all available. I think we're going to show and talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But again, this is a best opportunity for you to get this done. It is a mandatory requirement from the California Energy Commission to do this portfolio manager and get all your data and submit it. So this is the best way to do it at this particular time. And you're going to get help doing it if you just give us a call. So anyway, with that, I know that we're going to talk a little bit more about this later.
And I saw Hussein's comment in the chat box there, and I completely unequivocally agree. Lisa has done an absolutely phenomenal job with you guys over there, Ron. And I'll tell you what, if it wasn't for her, ours probably wouldn't be online and reporting right now.
I echo that 100%.
Yeah. So everybody else that's on the call, you need to take advantage of that. Lisa does a great job. So do we have anything else? Any more questions for the folks over at the CEC? And I don't see any. So Brent, for you and your team, thank you again for joining us and for all the good work that you do up there in helping not only us, but the state. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it as well.
You have a good day.
Thank you too.
Thank you. All right, let's see here. We're a little bit ahead of schedule. Why don't we take let's take a 5-minute break in case anybody needs to use the restroom or anything. And then how about we reconvene at 12:35? So that gives you about 6 or 7 minutes. And then we'll move on with the conversation that we have with the partnership and a little bit of information from SEI with Elizabeth. Take care. We'll see you in 5.
Are you there, Fred?
Yeah. Do we have most people back now?
Yeah, I think we lose a few, but I think we got a lot of them here.
Good enough. I mean, there's.
I'm here.
All right, cool.
Cool. So I tell you what, we've got the little bit of discussion coming up for the SEI fellowships, and not only that, but the partnership as well. So, Lisa, why don't we just take a second and introduce Elizabeth?
Sure.
Since she's joining us from Sitka.
So Elizabeth is joining for the first time, and I think she thought she was going to get to be a fly on the wall the whole time. But instead, we're going to make her a star of the show. So all of the utilities, and actually, I frankly have to say, PG&E kind of led the way with working with SCI in development of, these fellowships. And, what I really want to highlight is, we did a lot of focus groups with the California community colleges last year, as well as the year before, kind of hearing what needs there were out there from you guys. And, a lot of what was talked about is, how do we get more extensions to our staff? How do we work closer together with training, education? How do we integrate kind of the core mission of community colleges into the work we do in the energy space? And so, SCI kind of comes in and checks a lot of those boxes. And so SCE recently developed a partnership with SCI in 3 core categories. One is some key fellowships and fellowship programs. 2 is with academic projects focused on sustainability, clean energy future. And then the 3rd being in the training category, how could we develop training programs with you folks? And, how could we partner and provide that to you? And so, that's really, kind of what that partnership is and who Elizabeth is. She kind of manages all of that nuts to bolts on behalf of SCI. So I don't know, do we have Elizabeth? Is she on camera?
I kind of think she went salmon fishing because she's not on the line here right now. I don't see her.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of what that partnership is, and the work that we're doing with SCI. She may have had some technical difficulties, so I apologize for that. But that really has been the work we're doing with SCI. And, a lot of you give kudos to Lisa and my, she actually comes from that program. And so you could just see the quality and the value that we get out of these, fellows that come aboard and partner with us both in the energy and sustainability space. So it's truly exciting, the work that we're all doing together. And we are here to also talk about the partnership program. And as many of you probably know, the partnership program is about to sunset, at least in the form that it is today. It is going to be migrating to what we call third-party offerings. So a third party will be coming in and taking over the energy efficiency work that will be done with the community college campuses. Of course, the utilities are still here to be your trusted energy advisor, your partner, as far as anything else that you have or that you're doing. But, from a programmatic perspective, they're going to be bringing that in, and they will be implementing and working to incentivize projects with you. And so that is actually planned to be filed today. Once that is filed, we'll be able to talk together, and maybe at the next SCFO, Fred, we could bring in who that third party is going to be once that's been announced, and really have conversations around community college needs and, kind of what they plan to offer as far as the programs goes. So that's something to be aware of as well. And then the last update that I have just from the partnership community college space, and Ron, tell me if I've missed anything, is, there's several of you that have asked questions around new construction, especially with the budget. What can you take advantage of? And, Fred talked a lot about where the energy code is going. And so, the CETA program is still out there. It is still available to community colleges to take advantage of in the new construction space. So that will continue to happen. That will not be captured in the new program we're talking about. That will be strictly retrofits, renovations, remodels, maybe commissioning. We haven't seen the list of offerings yet, but that's what would kind of be focused in that space. And so from a partnership perspective, we'll continue to support, we'll continue to be here, we'll continue to be a resource and answer questions, but we won't be administering the program any longer once that third party comes aboard. So that's my updates, just so you know, Fred.
Lisa will make sure that we include that organization on the next meeting. And then I can't help but say the one thought that went fleeting through my mind as you mentioned the word sunset and all that kind of stuff is, all right, you think about all the different people that you worked with, because it's been a number of years now. And I haven't been on there the entire time, but I believe you have. And I think, Ron, have you been on there since day one also?
Yes.
Ron and I are the last two standing.
And look at Ron. You would never know that. He still looks like he's 40 years old.
Look at my gray hair, and then look at him in the desert. I'm doing something wrong.
You guys are too kind.
So the rest of us have been there. Those that actually served on the committee and everything for a relatively short time. But think about all of the amount of work that was actually done and the benefit to all of us at each one of the colleges is unbelievable. From all the Prop 39 stuff, all the projects that we're able to do before. How much money has each one of our campuses saved by benefiting from that? And to see that it's going to sunset or whatever, to me is kind of unbelievable. But what a benefit it was. And what a wonderful job Lisa and Ron and all the other folks with all the utilities and Fred. And was Fred the original one, Lisa, or no?
From the community college chancellor's office. So it was Ron, Jose, and Fred that were our original three on the very first committee that was established from the community college side. And then there were several of us from the utility side.
Well, you all did an absolutely incredible job, and to see it all the way through, I wish I could give you a Medal of Honor, but I can't, but I can tell you publicly that I would do that. You guys did an amazing job, and the benefit to the state and all the community colleges is absolutely incredible. So, we're looking forward to the next step. We'll make
thank
sure.
You, Fred, and we couldn't have done it without you guys.
Yeah, well, you know what?
No, I was just going to say, we couldn't do it without the community colleges either, and your leadership. I mean, Hussein, who's on here. I don't even know. I think I saw Thomas Cias on here, who's been part of the committee. I mean, everybody. We've never missed a step or missed a beat throughout this. It's whoever has come to the table and been part of that community has just been remarkable. And, that's why the management team was developed, so that community colleges had some input into where programs were going. And that's why partnerships were created. So when we look at the definition of partnerships, community colleges really were at the forefront of that. And we couldn't thank you and others enough for all of that as well. And, the one thing I will say, when we started to add up all the numbers after Prop 39 and a little while after, I think we got to something over $500 million in energy savings that we were able to see throughout the community colleges over the course of the partnership being in place. So you look at the significant contribution you guys have made to California, it's significant.
That's amazing. Success is in the sum of the parts. And well, that's why we got our group and everybody's here today. You're the ones that make it happen. So there you go. So with that being said, does that kind of cover it? Oh, and I have to tell you all that we're going to be one of the recipients of one of those fellows as well. It's going to be on our next board agenda. And, thank you to all of you that supported that. We're looking forward to getting a clone of the other Lisa over at Ron's office. And if anybody's been in my office, I don't have that many people, so I can certainly use the help. Well, you can tell that by just talking to me anyway. I need all the help I can get. But with that being said, I guess, Ron, you want to cover the update for portfolio manager? I know you maybe want to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I wanted Lisa to bring that up, and I was going to have her bring it on since she's the one that one of this. I'll help her where I need to, or she.
So does Lisa have a sister or a clone that I can get, or no?
Yeah, there you go.
We're gonna find you one for sure.
I don't have any sisters, but
no,
everyone I've met in the program is amazing. So I don't have any concern. I don't think you should be concerned at all.
Awesome.
Okay, so these are our quick slides of if you are interested. Well, actually, you have to get on Portfolio Manager. So if you're going to and would like help, I am here to help. We've already helped quite a handful of districts so far, and it's getting much, much easier every single time. A lot less technical problems than when we started. So these are the steps. Overall, you got to open an account, although most districts already had one. It's just they got disconnected from the utilities, and that's where I can help you go through the process. Depending on which utilities you use, they all have slightly different ways to request your data to be connected. But so far we've been successful with all of them, so that shouldn't be a problem. And then I can also walk you through the steps on how to report to the Energy Commission in order to comply with the AB 802. And that's really, really easy. And that's the only thing you'll have to do every single year. Once we get it automatically connected, it's all your data is just automatically uploaded every month, and you just have to go back once a year, click submit, and it should be all good. And then I also have the link to the website here, where I have a lot of resources that are on the next slides, and then my contact here and also at the end. Here's the newsletter. We have some, it's from February, so I'm sure you've all seen it, but there's also 2 more links that have been added that I'll add in the next iteration of it, but I just wanted to share. The California Energy Commission shared, they have a massive listserv. You can just click on the link and there's like a million checkboxes. You just click on the topics that are most relevant to you, and there's a lot of good resources there. And then I also added a new benchmarking page on the partnership website that has a lot of the resources that Brent had shared at the end of his presentation. So I collected all those in one place. That'll hopefully be helpful to you. And they're also right here if you want more. They're right here in little descriptions. And I also have a link to the questionnaire that Hoang had mentioned, that we will, take all of your sustainability projects and put them in a spreadsheet so that the utilities can look at them and see where they can help you out. And that is all. Here are all the contact information of everybody in the partnership. And that's my spiel. If you had anything to add, Ron?
Yeah, just the one thing. Would you be able to show the questionnaire? I like for folks to see what's on the other end of that questionnaire, not just the questionnaire itself, but the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Well, we could let's walk through this first, and this is some of the questions and things that we're asking. I don't think any of them are too tough, but what we're asking is try to provide as much information as possible. If you think it's going to take too much time or anything, put in the information that you think would be helpful for us. And I think it would be great. There'd be opportunities for us to be able to help you or provide you, or at least point maybe some of the things in the right direction, or you guys point us in the right direction. But I think it's a good way. It could be a good two-way communication tool. And so these are just some of the questions that we're asking to get more information that help build a pipeline of projects for us. And especially if you're doing a lot of scheduled maintenance and you know how quickly those timelines are going to come at you. If we've got an opportunity to get a head start with a pipeline of projects and being able to figure out how we might be able to assist you, it might give you a go or no go on your project when we get down. I mean, that's all about planning. And the planning is, I think, a very important part of our jobs. Can we show the?
Yep, I think that's the right one.
Okay, so here's are some of the things that you can see that questionnaire, when you fill it out, it automatically populates the information here on this spreadsheet. So let's take a look at some of the projects that some of the people are planning. You can look down here. You can see what is happening here, BMS controls, central plants, some of them are planning. When we get down to the end, you can see basically where we're asking about whether you have an integrated master plan or not, or if you got a sustainability plan. And then maybe, you know, if we're able to get this information back and forth, look at here. I mean, there's a lot of great information here that I think that would help us communicate with you a little bit better. So just wanted to give you a good sight of what that looks like on the other side once you start filling out those questionnaires. And if you have some trouble with that, call Lisa.
Yeah.
Well, and can I just say one more thing on this spreadsheet and the value of this? Remember, you guys, that a new third party is coming in. And, you know, the whole idea around influence in energy efficiency is not going away. So a lot of the foundation of what we'll be able to share with that third party as they come aboard, as you guys kind of start putting your needs down on paper, you know, this is going to be super valuable so that you guys get the benefit of whatever that third party is going to start to offer. So that's a key thing to think about as you're thinking, wow, do I really want to do another spreadsheet? Do I want to do another questionnaire? You know, that's something to just keen in on, is that that's really going to be a critical piece of what value this information can provide.
And I do want to add that I went through and Owen actually only submitted one response, but I went through and I just separated each project and then copied and pasted all of these details, because your campus has all the same details. But I divided it up by projects, and so you can look at those side by side. So I can definitely, you don't have to submit like 50 different forms. I can help out with whatever I can.
And Ron, it looks like it's really important to put projects on there. Doesn't matter how small or how big they are.
That's right. You know, and I think, you know, especially if you're planning and you're planning on putting these together and you don't have the funding sources right now, this gives you an opportunity to be able to get, and we're glad to share the information with you. I think it's important. And, you know, and Hussein, I think him and I have talked about this a long time. If you don't do the planning, if you do the planning up front and you plan your projects, there's always money that comes available in the future. And if you're ready for that money, you could be the first one at the table. And that's important when you are doing your due diligence for your district. Always plan, always have your stuff ready to go, have projects up and ready. I mean, Hussein, you could talk a little bit about that, I know.
Ron, you know what you just described?
What's that?
The definition of luck.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Being prepared when opportunity presents itself.
Exactly.
Hussein, go ahead.
He might be offline.
Okay. Well, anyway, big and small, make sure you put them on there. And I think that's another reason why it's really important to maybe send it out in a couple different ways. That way people don't accidentally delete a email or whatever.
Right. And you could put all the, like Lisa said, you could put all the information on the one questionnaire, and we'll separate it and put it on the form for you. It's not a big deal. I mean, you just, once you submit it, we'll figure it all out from there.
Lisa, there's one thing that our group likes. It's the word easy.
I enjoy making things easier for others. So yes, please just do it.
So Ron and the other Lisa, do you folks have anything else you want to bring forward to the group?
No, that's it.
Well, where are we at? We're almost at 1 o'clock, so we're saving you folks some time. You can actually go get a sandwich now. But anyway, we want to turn it over to the group now. As you know, you always have an opportunity to pipe up and say, make comments along through all of the program, but now's your chance to, do you have any issues you want to bring forward, any thoughts, questions about heat pumps or anything like that, how the code's changing, all those kinds of things that will definitely be here, whether you agree with them or not, they will be here. So I'll open it up to everybody now.
I know one thing I'd like to hear about from you guys is anything about future topics that you would like to have included in these workshops, in these symposiums, forums. That'd be great to hear. We'd like to be able to bring things to the table that's important to you.
That's right. As a matter of fact, you know, a lot of our ideas for topics are generated by the folks that actually come to the meeting. So sometimes they're not, you know, a lot of times people don't want to speak up and tell you right on the spot, here's what I'd like to see, because they might think that, oh, that's a stupid one or whatever. But the answer to that is really no, there is no stupid one at all. And we try to mix things up. There's always the topic of energy that's going to remain on there. That is the #1 goal. But then what we try to do to make sure that we're providing viable stuff across the board, a campus is a mini city. You've got needs on the service side, the custodial side, the ground side. I mean, it's endless. That's why we mix things up and bring in different topics so that it's not all the same thing all the time, because we want to make sure that we're, you know, providing a broad spectrum of need for you guys. And I think, Chuck, do you have your hand up there?
I do. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for the presentations today. I really enjoyed it. I was looking at that spreadsheet that Lisa had up, and it had the NOCCD building, and it was a measure, but it said NCM1, which I think was probably a measure to shut the air handler off. But I actually put in Johnson Controls network control modules NCM 20 years ago. So if it's referring to that, it's time to change that puppy. I'm just saying. But the topic, what I'd like to talk about is our ability to get possible funding for energy studies ahead of all the stuff that you already talked about that we have to go through to get anything done. So one example would be, you know, I still have package units and DX systems throughout my campus. In order to go carbon neutral, there's going to have to be some massive changes that have to be done, right? To electrically heat my swimming pool is going to be a problem for both myself and Lisa. You know, the grid's only so big. I did have electric boilers at Airport Business Center in by the airport. That was a grid dragger. But I think if we can get sources of funding where the campuses can individually go after what we would need to do in the bigger picture, so that when we're doing our 5-year plans, we kind of know where to go. You know what I mean? Like a central plant may not make sense to me until I have to electrically heat water, which I'm going to have to do because everything's perimeter reheat, right? So I'm going to have waste heat. I'm going to have, you know, I have to research, you know what I mean? There's just a whole bunch of measures that go on there. It's going to involve coils and things. So there's a lot of big ticket items. And it'd be helpful if we kind of knew what those were in advance, so that we can do our planning. Because if you start the planning, you say, okay, now you got to go after RFPs to kind of get the engineering to figure out where you need to go. And then you end up in a big circle and you don't really know where to begin. So from my perspective, I think it would be help out if the campuses, for example, could come up with funding sources to get engineering studies and stuff done for, ahead of that, if that makes sense, if I'm going in the right direction.
Thank you, Chuck.
Yeah, and I'll just say, Chuck, with, building electrification and decarbonization at the forefront of everything, you're right, because we're just finishing a study at UCI Medical Center for this exact reason. How are you going to take your entire gas heating system throughout a hospital and figure out how to electrify, right? And where do you start? And then where's the turning point to where you go to maybe, mini plants versus one large, massive central plant, and, what's everything in between? And so, there are some funding sources coming down through IIJA and other things, but I think you make a great point. If we could bring those forward and show you guys where that funding is available and how to take advantage of those before you start even getting to asking to implement, I think that would be beneficial if I'm tracking what you're kind of asking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Get the GLUMACs in here because, like you started off, Fred, it's such a moving target that a lot of people sit back and they kind of wait for this to, go somewhere and then for have a clear direction. But I don't think there's going to be a clear direction because, like you said, the priorities keep changing. I got fuel cell technologies coming after me, say, hey, that looks great, but I think that produces carbon dioxide and then burning gas to create carbon. And there's a lot of stuff that it would help us out to have a funding source to get a plan together, I think.
So I guess maybe this is a topic about where is the money?
It is, yeah.
Where's the electricity?
Yeah, where is the electricity?
We need to start talking about, the localized grids. We need to start talking about, the funding to make all of this happen on the planning side, to do kind of what GLUMAC presented, because that, is amazing information and that's what the campuses need. So how do we get that? And, the only thing that's different here than what they did with CSU is, yes, 23 campuses is a lot, but you're at 117 when you talk community colleges. So how do we balance that? Because you can't have one massive plan that fits all. But I love that idea.
Yeah, did Reese have his hand up? I can't remember.
Nobody put some great topics in the chat, so those are exact ones that I think we can touch on too as topics for the future.
So we'll make sure that we tabulate those and look for some very interesting stuff coming up on the next one. And in the meantime, Lisa and I and Ron will schedule a day and then we'll start doing some get our brain fodder together, probably meet sometime, I'm thinking probably somewhere in July. All right. Does anybody else, this is your last chance? I know you want to go get lunch.
Fred, for facilitating and always being here to kind of guide us. So we so appreciate that too.
Well, you know what? It's fun working with everybody. That's what keeps everybody here still.
Look
at Ron, he's still hanging around because he's having such a good time.
There you go.
But have a great day, everybody.
Right,
take care, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.